everyone, welcome back to Sharon Cullen Art. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Now I've already filmed a portion of this, so I have to go back here and do the intro and also play with Diesel in the meantime. But what I'm going to be doing is painting this box. This box was given to me by one of my fellow TAG members. TAG is the Thumb Arts Guild, which I belong to here in the Thumb of Michigan. If you're not familiar with our map, this is the Lower Peninsula, this is the Upper Peninsula, and they connect here. So I live right here in the tip of the thumb, and so this is called the Thumb Arts Guild. But anyway, we do a silent auction every year, and I'm a new member, so I didn't have a box to paint. This box came to me covered blue, which you will see in just a moment. The inside was also painted black here, and then blue on the bottom here. So in order to paint it, I thought I would try using something called cold pressed ground. There are a couple ways I could have done this. I could have painted paper and then glued it down like I normally do. But since this box is going to be opened and closed, I worry about the edges lifting over time and getting nasty looking. So I decided to go ahead and put the cold pressed ground on. And I have a layer on now, and I'm just taking my palette here, holding it open while it dries. A little bit more about this as well. This auction is done. All of us paint a box. They are put online prior to the auction so people can see them. And if they want to purchase one, they will bid on it, and the highest bidder wins. And then we also have donated items for the auction that are sold, and they're donated by the fellow artists that are in the participating in the auction. And then all that money goes towards things that we do throughout the year. Like, for instance, we have something coming up Labor Day weekend called Art in the Park, and it is a huge, not huge, but it's getting bigger, art fair. And it's a juried art fair, which means you have to be accepted in by the jurors in order to sell your goods there. If you're not a professional artist, then they're not going to accept your artwork. But anyway, we use the funds partially for that because we hire bands to play throughout the day. There's a lot of stuff that it's used for. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and paint this box, and I thought I'd do a landscape, my usual, but there was a painting I did about a year ago, I think it was, and I believe I did it in gouache. Maybe I did it in watercolor. But anyway, it was a path leading to the lake with trees on both sides and bushes. And I think I might do that same sort of painting here because everybody who visits loves to go to the lake. So I thought maybe that would be a good idea. Either that or just a wooded landscape. So I'm still trying to decide. And then on the inside, I thought I might do a different landscape, or maybe a continuation, like a close-up on the lake with the waves and everything and the sand. So I just have to figure out what I'm going to do here. But let this dry, and then we'll move on. So first, let me just rough this paper up, or rough this paint up with the sandpaper. This is just 220 grit. It's what I have right now. And I want to just take off the rough spots. There are a couple rough edges here. Make sure it's cleaned off. I got blue all over my hands, so I'm going to take a towel here, wet it a little bit. Actually, I'll just wet it with my spray bottle. That'd probably be easier. Okay, just going to spray this with a little bit of water here and wipe it off and get that excess paint off, because I don't want this to turn blue. I'd like it to remain white. And it looks like this area might be a graft point on the box. I'm not sure what was done. So now that that's clean, I'm going to go ahead with my ground, and I'm going to put a layer of it down. Now I've taped around the outside of the box already on all 4 sides, and I'm going to use my cold press ground. I have a bigger brush than I really want to use here, but I can't find my other brushes for like acrylic painting. Those brushes are cheap and easy to find plenty of, but I don't know where they're at right now. So I'm going to just pick some of this ground up if I can get it on my brush, and I'm just going to spread it around. I want to get a nice layer down here, and then I'll let it dry. And then I'm going to come back and do another layer, and hopefully I can get it to completely cover. Normally I wouldn't have to use much, but I don't want anything, well, I guess I don't even need it to cover, like turn white, because I'm going to be covering it all with gouache anyway. Basically what this does is gives a little bit of tooth for the paint to stick to, just like watercolor paper would. I don't know why when I film, you have to cry all the time, but I wish you'd stop. Now, while that's drying, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of this box too, and put some ground in here because I may want to paint this. I didn't sand it though. Let me go ahead and sand it first, best I can. And I'm going to wipe that out. And now go ahead and I'll put in the cold press ground. It's by Core Watercolors, the one that I have, and it's called Cold Press Ground. You can find it on Amazon. It's a handmade paper-like surface. You can apply it thick or thin, whichever you prefer. So I'll go ahead and let this dry. I'm going to prop it open while it's drying. I'll just use my Da Vinci watercolor palette here. There we go. That'll hold it open, and then that can dry. And we'll come back. And then I found some stain in our garage. This is a dark walnut stain. It should be really pretty. I'm going to stain the sides, and then I will put some polyurethane over that to protect it. Okay, now I let that dry, and I'm going ahead and putting a second coat over this just to give it a little more tooth and make sure that it's even before I go ahead and paint them. Okay, so now I have my cold press ground all dried on my box, and I'm going to go ahead and start by painting the outside. Excuse me, getting over a cold. I put some lines down for reference marks for my sky, my water, my sand, and then I'll put my trees in and all that. But I'm going to go ahead with the gouache. I forgot my water here. Where's my bottle? Here it is. I've already sprayed my paints, and I have them ready to go. So I will go ahead and start. I'm going to start with the sky first and paint that on, and then I'm going to try and I think I'll just go in with a little bit of cobalt blue to start. And this seems to be spreading on okay, which is good. It's a little bit different than painting with paper though. I grab some water here and wet this and spread it out a little bit. Just using, I think this is a 1/2 inch flat, or they go by numbers. It's a number 10 Da Vinci Cosmotop Spin. I think this will probably dry a little bit slower because it's cold pressed ground rather than paper. I'm going to just take my rag and kind of dab it and see if I can put some clouds in a little bit. I don't want the marks from the rag, you know what I mean? So I'm going to take a little bit of my white paint here and just kind of go over this a little bit, make them a little bit whiter in spots. Spread this around a little bit so it fans out a bit. Soften the edges up. There we go. Okay, so now I got my sky down. Oh, I'm sorry, I was off frame, wasn't I? Put my sky in with the cobalt blue and the white. And now I'm going to go ahead in, I missed a little edge here though. I want to make sure that the sky is even on the line. There we go, that looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead in with my water. And I'm going to use the cobalt blue again. I'm going to add a little bit of green to it to make it more of an aqua color. So, water this down. I don't know if this is the right color or not. No, that's a little too dark. But the background would probably be a little bit darker anyway. So I'm spreading the water around. Diesel, it's okay, babe. He wants to go outside. I have to stop the camera in a second and let him go. Now I'm going to mix here on my box with some white to lighten the area as it gets closer to shore. It's really windy today, and my friends are moving their boat rack, pulling the boat racks out of the water this weekend because we get ready for fall now. September is coming just around the bend, and so I may have to go help move a jet ski over to the boat launch, which is a few miles, and it's so windy. I hate going out in water this rough, but on a jet ski it shouldn't be bad as long as I stay close to shore. There, now I can add in a little bit more with the waves. A lot of this is going to be covered, so I'm not making the water very elaborate. Just here and there. Oh, I better stop and let him out. Okay, so continue on with this. Want a little more darkness in the back. And I want to even up these lines. Add a little darkness up here. Gotta mix a little more color here. I gotta hustle and get this done because the auction is this week. Whew, it's coming quick. And now I want to put the sand down before I put the water on top. So I'm going to take some of that buff color that I have along with some yellow ochre and Maybe a little bit of gray, we'll see. But right now I'm just going to move this along for my sand color. I have lines drawn in, but I'm not worried about the lines matching here because I'm going to be bringing the water over the sand. I'd like this color to mix together a little bit anyway, because then it looks like you can see the sand through it. There we go. Now, I'm going to paint this up here. Whoops, I almost dropped it. Most of this is going to get covered up, so with trees and underbrush and stuff like that. But this will be my underpainting. It's going to have to sit for a few minutes and dry. And I want to get a little bit of green down in these other patches. So I'm just going to take this green, spread it around, just so I have it. This is very rough, this cold press ground. So for me, especially working in gouache, it's nice to use synthetic brushes on this. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, same to the other side over here. Now, somebody may go off on me for my composition being centered. It's not quite centered. But for this box, I think for the purpose of the box, this will look better. It's not hanging on a wall. So that's why I chose to do it that way. Okay, that's good enough for now. Just get this other edge over here. And then I can go back and start on the water again. My sky is done. My water I need to work on. It's not quite dry yet, so I'm going to let it dry and then we'll meet back. Okay, now I'm dry. I'm going to go back with the sky. I've changed my mind. I want to add a little more white to the clouds and brighten them up a little bit. I'm still going to soften these edges, but I just want to get the white on. I'm just going to take a little water and go around the edges. And it'll pull these clouds out a little bit. You can see it pulling away. Maybe a little too much water there. Maybe pull some of that up. There we go. There. I can soften those edges a bit more. And now I'm going to go into the water, and I want to do a little more white in the water too. I want to soften this one like a spray. This one too a little bit, but it's in the distance, so. Okay, and now I'm going to take some of the blue solution that I had made, and I got to go back in here with this pencil line is showing, so I've got to make a stronger mark here with the sand to get rid of this pencil line. That'll work. I don't want that line to show. It probably wouldn't after the trees anyway, but I just feel better about getting it out of the way. Got to mix some more green and blue. It's too dark. There we go. Guess I can lay it dark on this and it'll just spread in. I still see that line over here. I'm going to add a little more sand to this area. Now going over gouache with the second layer, the trick is to be thicker with your paint on each subsequent layer. At least that's what works for me. My first layer you saw, my underpainting was somewhat watered down. Now these layers are thicker, so they're going on without pulling up the paint beneath it. If your brush is too wet though with water, it's going to reconstitute the paint underneath, and you're going to end up with the colors running together. think I'm done painting the top. Now my next step is to figure out what I'm gonna do inside. I wanna paint something in here, I'm just not sure what. Maybe just write Port Austin or something like that, but I need to lay paint down first. And then I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with this blue spot on the bottom. I gotta cover that up too. I might just put one color of paint down inside and then stain the rest of the box, but I'm gonna go ahead. Actually, I might do the staining now to see if I like it, because if I don't, then I'm gonna end up painting the whole box. So let me grab a rag for that, and then I can go ahead and stain. Okay, it looks like the stain is gonna be dark, but I'm gonna go ahead and stain all the way around. Let's see what this does. Oh, that's a little darker than I wanted to go. Oh well. See how much of it I can wipe off. If I just keep it like this and rub it in, maybe it'll be okay. Actually, that looks very woodsy, so that might work just fine. Oops, I'm not going with the grain of the wood. It's going up and down, I think. Ah. Well, let me speed this along and I will meet you back. Okay, I just finished staining, and there is a spot on here that isn't taking stain, and I hope it's just the grain. It appears to be just the grain, because in the center of it, something is being taken. So I don't know if the previous person spilled something there or what, but I was kind of hoping that line would go away, but it is kind of intriguing. So anyway, this is a dark walnut stain, a little darker than I had expected, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let this dry now for about 24 hours, and then I will go ahead and put my polyurethane on it. But after this is completely dry, in a few hours, what I'm gonna do is put a spray matte coat on top, very thinly from very far away. It is quite windy today, so I may have to wait on it, but what I wanna do is, I tried using the glossier spray and it just spread my paint everywhere. But if I'm a few feet away and I just lightly spray coat, let it dry, 20 minutes later, lightly spray coat, let it dry. If I do that about 4 times, I'm thinking that I will completely cover this, and then I can go ahead and put the polyurethane on all over the place, and it won't matter what happened to this because it'll be sealed. So that's my plan. Hopefully it'll work. Otherwise, I got to throw this box away and start over, or else paint over it and start over. So we'll see what happens. Okay, well, I've made a decision. I'm not spraying anything on this because I don't want to ruin it. I'm going to put my Dorland's Wax Medium over the top of this. I'm going to coat it well with a couple of coats of this. And then on the bottom portion, I'm just using a wood finishing wax. I'm using Minwax Paste Finishing Wax. And you can use it on unfinished wood to apply, just keep adding coats of the wax. In fact, I have an oak table across the room from me that I did probably 36 years ago, and I've never re-waxed it It's looking a little dull now, but I could probably do it again, but I never put any polyurethane over it. So I'm just gonna do that, and I've already put one coat on, and I think I put it on a little too thick because it's not drying very quickly, although the humidity is going up too, so that will have something to do with it. But I'm just gonna wax this good, and then once it's done, I'll wax it again tomorrow, and I'll do it again the next day. I just want to let this wax penetrate into the wood because it's just a plywood box. It's not anything special. So I'll just do that. Let this soak in. You're supposed to let it dry. Now, I had excess stain on there that I was letting sit, so it hadn't dried either, but that's fine. If I rub it off, it'll actually look cool. I want it to have like a weathered look, so that'll add to it. And then once I have the outside completed, then I'm going to go ahead on the inside of the box because I want to make sure that this is protected on the outside before I start working inside. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Now, as far as the Dorland's Wax Medium goes, let me just finish polishing this up with this first coat. And if you're not familiar, I will show you exactly what we do with the Dorland's Wax Medium on gouache. And you can see how that works. Okay, this is dry. It's dried several hours. So what I'm going to do is use my Dorland's Wax Medium. Dorland's Wax Medium is an artist medium meant to go over paint. So all you do is you take a little bit on a rag or with your fingers. I usually use my fingers. I feel better about that. So I just put it on like this and I just rub it in. And you can see that it does not disturb the paint at all. See, my hands are clean. Well, not real clean, but I just feel safer than using a spray on this because I worked hard on it and I really want it to be entered into the auction. So I'll just put this on here to protect the paint. And it'll be permanent and it'll never be penetrable once I have this down. Kind of looks like oil paint when you put this on. It's not super glossy, but it will leave a bit of a glossy sheen to it. So if you don't want that at all, then you may not want to use this. There, it's somewhat wet. So I'm just going to leave this on and let it dry right into the surface. And that's all there is to it. And then I can go ahead and start with my inside. But I'm going to wait a day before I do that. I'll work on it tomorrow. But I've got the first coat of wax on the wood, and I've got the Dorland's Wax Medium on this, so this is protected now. And actually, I see a little streak here that's bugging me. There we go. You can take a light to it. I've also taken my heat gun to it to let the wax go over the surface. I just keep it at a distance, and you can kind of see where the wax is as it warms up and wets. And it lets you know where everything is on here. And it looks like I've covered it pretty well. So that's all there is to it. So I'll just let that sit, and I will start working on the inside tomorrow. Well, just like on the outside of the box, I start the inside of the box with the cold pressed ground, putting it on the inside of the lid and the floor of the box. Now, I'm going over this sky several times. I used Arteza gouache, and I had trouble with it covering in the corners. I don't know if it was the gouache that was causing the problem. I didn't seem to have the problem with the green, which was my Winsor & Newton gouache. So that's why I'm thinking it was the gouache that I used. Now I'm going ahead in with the trees, and I'm going to be doing an early fall scene on the inside. I decided not to go with any writing or anything like that. Okay, so here's the finished box, inside and out. And remember, everybody, be courageous, paint with wild abandon, and most of all, be kind to each other. Have a great day. Bye-bye.